Okay, my peeps, we are back for another kind of planning, prepping, lesson skill type thingy. If you haven't watched Menu Planning 101, I really encourage you to watch that. It's only about 10 minutes, but it kind of leads into some of what we're going to talk about today. Today is more around the actual prep pieces. And everything that I'm going to tell you is all about keeping your stress level down, getting good, wonderful meals on the table as quick as you can, making it fun to be in the kitchen, and just keeping your life a little easier. We all about some easy. So we talked in the menu one-on-one about create your habit, create your menu, build your shopping list of your shopping. So you've done all of that. That's kind of your planning pieces around your menu and getting ready. Now we're going to start doing prepping for the week's cooking. Whether you are a working mom or a working single or a stay-at-home mom, even if you're a stay-at-home mom, you still want your kitchen time to be a little more organized and easy, I would think, unless you just like to fly by the seat of your pants. And if you do, more power to you. But what I want to talk to you about today, so we've got our menu planned for next week. Let's just imagine we're planning on cooking 4 days out of the 7. So one night Johnny's got a ball game, one night we're going to be in church, and Friday I never cook. That was always my rule. So that leaves 4 nights that I need to be prepared to cook something for our family's dinner. So I'm going to do a pork, a beef, a chicken, and a shrimp. I'm not saying you have to do that every time, but it just keeps things a little easier and adds more variety to your meals if you try and do one of each. Again, it's your kitchen. Do what you want to do. If y'all love seafood, do seafood every night, whatever works for you. But just to keep the variety in, I tend to kind of try and do that, one of each. So here's what we've got on our plan. We've got honey thighs, Hawaiian beef, creamy sausage pasta, and shrimp creole. So those are our 4 meals. I've pulled those 4 recipes. Actually, I only pulled 1 paper recipe. The other 3 are on my laptop, which is what I'm looking at. But I'm going to talk to you about how you can prep some steps ahead. And we do this in the restaurant, and it makes cooking so easy. So let's talk shrimp creole. There's my recipe. So what I have done on a lot of my recipes, not all of them, but I've done it on a lot of them, and you can just handwrite it in right in your cookbooks like we talked about in a previous video. Make your prep ahead notes out to the side. Anything that can be done a day or several days ahead is what you want to do when you've got your prep time. If your prep time, mine was typically always Sunday midday. That's just usually when I prepped. I would do my planning of my menu on Saturday, my grocery shopping, and then Sunday, after I got home from church and did all the do with eating and all that, then I would just do some prep. Maybe an hour, couple hours max. And if you have kids that are old enough to help or that you're teaching to help, that's awesome. If your husband will get in the kitchen with you, that can be so much fun if you make it fun. But anyway, don't look at it as a chore, look at it as something fun. So, I don't know if you can see, but on the bottom of this menu, I've got my little prep ahead steps. And what I've done is I read through the instructions, and anywhere there's a step that you can do early, do it. Or anywhere there's a place of combining multiple ingredients, go ahead and do it. This is another place where your little recycling jar fetish will come in handy. You can put all these little seasoning blends or ingredient mixes in there. It's awesome. Another thing I highly encourage, and I'm going to talk specifically through a recipe in a minute. I feel like I'm kind of babbling around. I apologize. I've done this so much, you think anyway. Anywho, dissolvable labels. These are the greatest gift to a kitchen you could ever imagine. They're just like the little labels that you use for mailing and stuff, but they literally dissolve. So you're not using those other labels and sticking it on your jars and your lids or your Tupperware or whatever you're putting in your fridge, and then peeling the label off and leaving a gooey, sticky mess. These things literally dissolve in water within just a few minutes. They are phenomenal. And being the, anti-wasteful person that I am, I'll usually get at least 3 labels out of one because I'll just tear it. I don't need that big old thing. I'm not writing a novel. I'm just writing on here, shrimp 1, shrimp 2, or in this case, like I have on here, Creole 1, Creole 2, and I number it based on the steps in the recipe. So how about if we go through one? It'll make a little more sense. So the recipe says, heat lard, whisk in flour, stir continually to make a roux. Well, you know how to do that. There's nothing really to prep ahead there. I mean, heating lard, you can't do that ahead. And measuring out your flour, you could, but that's so simple. That's not really something you necessarily need to do. Add trilogy and bell pepper. Okay, now that's something that I would do ahead. I would definitely do ahead. So you need 2 cups of trilogy and a half a cup of bell pepper. So you get your trilogy out of the fridge, you put 2 cups in a jar, half a cup of bell pepper, that's gonna be one of your frozen packages. You get that out, dump it in the jar, label it Creole, you're good to go. Creole 2 in this case. Then the next steps, add seasonings. Okay, so we're gonna take our black pepper, white pepper, cayenne, and essence, mix all those together. Label it Creole 3. Then the next step, add green onions, parsley, tomatoes, and chicken stock. Okay, so I'm gonna get my green onions out of the freezer. Here we go again. It's a half a cup of green onions. That's one of my little frozen packages. You're gonna add your measurement of parsley, your can of diced tomatoes, and 2 cups of chicken stock. Stick a little label on that, Creole 4. And then you're gonna serve this over rice, so I would measure out my rice, a cup or 2 cups, depending on how much you're cooking. The only thing, and I kind of jumped ahead, I apologize. The first step that I had on here was thawing the shrimp and removing the tails. So you do that and label it Creole 1. So if you think about it, you've got all your little grouped ingredients ready to go, labeled in order. So you come screaming in the door at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening from work or wherever, whatever your life is, whatever you're doing, and you got to get supper on the table. You whip out anything out of your refrigerator that says Creole on it and make up your roux. You dump in the Creole 2, you dump in the Creole 3, you stir, let it cook down a little bit. You dump in the Creole 4, simmer it for 10 minutes, start your rice while it's simmering. You add your shrimp, you're done. It takes no time to whip out this dish. It's so easy. And when you're prepping in bulk, like if you're doing multiple recipes, you're gonna have ingredients out, on your counter as you're putting things together and mixing and measuring and all that. So that goes quicker as well because you're almost kind of doing an assembly line type process. So it's not getting the salt out on Monday and measuring, and Tuesday get the salt out and measure, and on Wednesday you get the salt out. You're getting it out once, you're measuring all you need, and you're ready to go. I'm telling you, if you get in the habit of doing this, it will save you so much time, so much frustration, and make your evenings a whole lot more enjoyable. So that's our shrimp Creole. Everything's labeled, ready to go. Next, let's talk about the honey thighs. This is a really good, simple, these are some recipes we're gonna make. I'm gonna do some videos on, and we're gonna go through the ingredients, and y'all are gonna make these things. But for now, we're just talking about the prepping. So the first step, you wanna thaw your chicken. That's something, let me pause for a second. I always thawed my meat on the weekend. And I know that may freak some people out. But when I did my menu planning on Saturday, I would figure out what meat I needed and how much of it. And if I already had it, I'm also building my grocery list. So I know what I have and I know what I need. So if I already have it, I get it out. Yes, I put it in my sink and let it thaw overnight. And nobody ever died. So no matter what anybody's ever told you about letting meat thaw overnight, it works. I've done it my whole life. My mama did it her whole life. It works. So anyway, I'd put my pound of shrimp in the sink. In this case, I need 2 pounds of chicken, For my beef, I need 2 pounds of ground beef. And for my pork dish, I need 1 pound of ground pork. So if I have it, it's coming out, it's going in the sink, and it's going to thaw. If I don't have it, then it goes on my grocery list. And then when I buy it, it's going to be thawed, unless the shrimp will probably be frozen. And then you prep what you can prep with it. But keeping thawed meat in the refrigerator for a few days is fine. It won't hurt as long as it stays cold. So that's my little tirade. Let me back up. So we're going to go back to our honey chicken. So I'm going to take my 2 pounds of chicken, boneless, skinless thighs, out of the refrigerator, throw them in the sink. That's done. Then in this recipe, you are going to toss the chicken in a seasoning blend that's got 6 ingredients, 6 seasonings. So I'm going to mix my garlic, my garlic powder, chili powder, salt, cumin, paprika, red pepper flakes. Mix all that up, label it honey 2. It's good to go. Set it on the counter. And then the last step is mixing honey and apple cider vinegar. So I'm going to mix those. It's going to be labeled honey 3, and it sits on the counter. So, all this stuff doesn't go in your fridge. Some of it can sit on the counter. You can have a little place designated, or if you have a cabinet you want to stick it in because you don't want it sitting out, whatever works for you, then do that. But those are your prepped ingredients. So the night you get home from work and you got a gajillion things to do, and maybe your kids need help with homework or whatever, you whip this stuff out, and getting this recipe done is that fast. And then you throw some of the other veggies, which would be in your plan, and they would be prepped as well. But you throw some of those things together, and your cooking in the evening is super simple. All right, let's talk about another recipe. All right, the creamy sausage pasta. This is a good one. So in this one, the ground pork is mixed with a seasoning blend, and it's always better if it sits overnight. Anytime you've got a seasoning blend to mix with meat, it doesn't have to, so don't freak out if you don't, but it's better if it does. It just the flavors mingle better. It's just really good. So you're going to take your pork that you thawed the night before, mix your seasoning, label it creamy 1 in the fridge. Next step, we've got to some nutritional yeast, let me go down here, and some gelatin. So you're going to mix that together. That doesn't have to be refrigerated. Creamy 2, throw it on the counter. You're going to shred up your cheese, because I encourage you to buy block cheese, not shredded cheese. And so shred your cheese, label it creamy 3 in the fridge. And then sun-dried tomatoes need to be sliced up. Slice those up, creamy 4. If they weren't refrigerated, they can stay out on the counter. If they were refrigerated, I'd throw them in the fridge. And you've got those steps. And then when you get home that night, it's throwing ingredients together and cooking some pasta. Oh, so simple. And then last but not least is our Hawaiian beef. So you've already thawed out your ground beef. You've got it labeled. So then you're going to mix you have a step where you're going to brown the beef with some onion, bell pepper, and garlic. So mix your onion, bell pepper, and garlic. If you use Trilogy, bonus. You mix that in there. Label that Hawaiian 2, stick it in the fridge. The next 5 ingredients in this recipe are ketchup, coconut sugar, rice vinegar, aminos, and pineapple juice. Mix all that stuff together. Label it Hawaiian 3, throw it in the fridge. Then the last step is mixing in some pineapple and bell peppers, some other bell peppers, red and more green. So you mix those together, Hawaiian 4, throw it in the fridge. So when you get home, the evening you're preparing that it's on your menu, then all you're doing is browning the beef with all those vegetables you've already prepared, prepped, cut, thawed, whatever you needed to do with them, and they're already together. Dumped all in the pan together, cook it. Add in the next 5 ingredients that are already measured, ready to go, mixed up. Pour it in, cook it 4 minutes. Throw in your pineapple and your bell pepper, cook it for a few minutes, supper's on the table. This is not a difficult or lengthy recipe to begin with, but you could really cut some time down. And if you're going to serve it over some rice, which is really good, have your rice cooking, you're ready to go. So hopefully this made sense and I wasn't too babbly all over the place. But if you can go from menu planning and organizing, like we talked about in the last video. Knowing what you're going to fix, what evening you're going to fix it. And let me back up on that one. I wouldn't even necessarily say what evening, but do it how you want to do it. I just always knew I was fixing this thing that week. I didn't put a day on it because it depended on what I felt like when I got home as to what I would cook. So anyway, you have your menu planned. You know the meals you're going to do. You've already done your grocery shopping. That's all good. We learned that in the first video. Then you're going to sit down, and as you do the recipes, if you mark your little prep steps on the bottom of your recipes, whether you have them typed, handwritten, in a cookbook, whatever, do those things in your prepping time. Label them with your little dissolvable labels. Throw them on the counter, in a cabinet, in your fridge, whatever. Have your meat thawed. You are ready to rock. So when you get home, the evenings, or when it's time to start preparing supper in those days, all you got to do is get out the pre-prepped ingredients and cook. And it'll make your life so much easier. It's such a great habit. I've done this for years and years and years. The weeks I didn't do it were not as pleasant. But the weeks I did it were a whole lot easier. The weeks I didn't do it is where my double duty meals could always come into play, like we talked about in the menu planning video. If you do some double duty meals, like the Hawaiian beef we just talked about is a great double duty. Because number one, it makes quite a bit. So if you have a smaller family, then you can make one recipe, split it in half, freeze half. If you have a larger family, double it. I mean, doing twice as much takes that much more time, and then freeze half of it. So the nights that you don't have a plan, or the weeks that you didn't get to plan, or whatever, you're grabbing some stuff out of your freezer. You're still having great home-cooked meals. Everybody's happy. You're not stressed. Life is good. So I hope this was helpful. We're going to talk about some other hints in buying and shopping and that kind of thing. But hopefully you've kind of seen a trend in, we've done a lot of kitchen basics. We've done a lot of really simple, get it on the table quick type sides and dishes. Got our menu planning, got our menu prepping or our meal prepping, and we'll get into cooking some other recipes and just kind of have sort of a little online cookbook with tutorial. So anyway, let me know what you think. If you have other helpful prepping, planning tips, throw them in the comments. Help other people with what you've learned. That's such a good thing. That's such a great benefit to this little nerdy cooking community that we're building. Throw them in there, like, subscribe, share, thumbs up, pat on the back, whatever. And I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, throw those in there as well. Okay? Thanks, and have a great one.